Hi, welcome to Science Q&A. I'm Marco, a PhD student in molecular biology, and today I'm going to answer your question, what are the differences between bacteria and viruses? Well, there are probably 1,000 different features that differentiate one from each other. However, personally, I think there are some of them that are fundamental to remember. So let's talk about size. We are talking about microorganisms, and microorganisms are organisms that live in the scale of something that is smaller than the millimeter. And for bacteria, for example, we talk about micrometers. And a micrometer is 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter, so it's already pretty small. But when we talk about viruses, they are even smaller. They are in the scale of nanometers, and nanometers are 1,000,000 times smaller than the millimeter. So super tiny. However, these are quite complicated scales to picture in your head. So to put things in perspective, think about this. If you were as tall as Mount Everest, so something like 9,000 meters, then a bacterium on your body would look like an aspirin on the Mount Everest, so something that's super tiny and basically invisible. Now let's move on to the second difference, which is probably one of the most important ones. And I'm talking about the replication mechanism. Bacteria are basically cells. As cells, they basically need only nutrients and a good environment with a good temperature, of course, to start proliferate. And then from a single bacterium, you start generating a colony of many bacteria which are identical to the originating cell. However, viruses, they are not able to replicate themselves, so they have to infect a host cell. And once there, they can start using the machinery that the cell has to actually start replicating. This actually leads to the third difference between them, which is the infection mechanism. Bacteria, as we said, they can just proliferate on their own. So once they enter in our body, what they do is they stick to our tissues, and while proliferating, they start producing toxins, which in turn cause damages to our body. In case of the viruses, instead, they have to enter our cells, and then once they are there, they start replicating. They produce a lot of copies of the single virus until cells basically explode and release all the viral particles in the environment. An important thing to remember is that viruses and bacteria can infect both humans and non-human animals. The coronavirus, or better said, the SARS-CoV-2, is a perfect example of a virus that infected just animals. It's not very clear which one, probably a bat, and through a mutation it was able to jump and infect a human being. The last difference, probably the most important for our everyday life, is how we fight them. So to fight bacteria we have two weapons. One is antibiotics and the other one is vaccines. For viruses instead we have antivirals and vaccines. The important thing about antibiotics is that they do not do anything against viruses. So if you're sick and you don't know whether your infection comes from a virus or a bacteria, you have to ask your family doctor. Because if you take antibiotics when you have a virus, the virus will just continue to proliferate, so you will not heal at all. And on top of it, you will have antibiotics selecting more aggressive bacteria, which will worsen your situation. Regarding vaccines, instead, we know they are safe and effective, so it's very important to vaccinate. And for example, against bacteria, we can mention the vaccine against tetanus, or for viruses, we can mention the vaccine against measles and chickenpox. Okay, so these were the differences that we can summarize as size, replication mechanism, infection mechanism, and how we fight them. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel to get notification for the next videos. Please hit the like button, and most importantly, ask any question in the comment below or by message. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well, so just contact me in any way possible and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you for watching and see you next time.